What is the number one reason most youth pastors quit within the first 2 years? That's what we're talking about today on the Ministry Coach Podcast.
Welcome to the Ministry Coach Podcast, where we bring you weekly tips and tactics to help you fast track the growth and health of your youth ministry. My name is Jeff Lascola, and this is
Kristen Lascola. And today we're going to talk about the number one reason that youth pastors quit within their first 2 years. Now, there could be a lot of reasons, but I'm just going to talk about the one that I think is the culprit for most of them. I think anytime you quit, it's a mixed bag of scenarios and emotions and circumstances, and it usually is not a very light decision. But I've noticed an underlying cause. No matter what the circumstances, this seems to be present somewhere, and that is loneliness. And I don't mean loneliness like in your personal life, like I have no friends or family. That is a hard situation, but that's not usually what leads to quitting your job.
Yeah.
I'm talking about leadership loneliness. Like that's a very specific brand of lonely that I think a lot of youth pastors suffer from. And if it goes on too long, what it does is it exacerbates all the problems around you to make those the cause of the quit. But really underneath it is that you were leadership lonely. So now you can't overcome a particular circumstance or a particular season or a particular problem, because through the lens of loneliness, those things are insurmountable and cause you to throw in the towel. You don't see a way out. You don't see it ever getting better. And the kind of depressive heart colors the way that you see those things.
Yeah.
So what do we mean by that? So I think the biggest thing on the positive side that brings job satisfaction to anybody, but specifically youth pastors, is the people around you, the team. And so the people around you could be like your volunteers, your interns, your leaders, the people who work most closely with you, like the people
within your youth ministry.
In your youth ministry itself. So I feel like you can put up with a lot of challenges if you're arm in arm with people that you genuinely love, that love you, that have your back, that are supportive, that are cheering you on, that are encouraging you constantly. And I think back to my really early days in youth ministry after I switched from our main campus to our first offsite campus. That was probably the worst our ministry ever was. We didn't have a permanent location. We were at a community center. We had only 11 students. They were awesome students, but it was just a very small ministry. And we only had a handful of leaders. We weren't growing. There were so many infrastructure things we had to put in place. Yet I look back at those times as some of the best because of who was around me. We were recently watching some old youth ministry videos that when Jeff was one of my leaders and my very first intern, this guy named Bryant, and one of our really good friends named Dana. And then we had this awesome leader named Zach join. And it was just the five of us. And we were just we don't have a lot, but we've got each other. And I feel like because we had so much fun, I remember we would go on Tuesdays to the junior high school to attend their Christian club, but we'd all go together. So we weren't lonely. Yeah, we barely have any kids, but oh well, we were together.
Right.
And then we'd make a day of it and go to lunch after at Pedro's Tacos and just sit out on the patio for an hour or two, just laughing and having a great time. We would make the most ridiculous, cringy youth group videos just for fun.
We wouldn't even show them to the students.
We would do Blue Day. Let's make a weird, I'm blue, ba-da-dee-da, whatever.
Weird.
And just these obnoxious videos, but we'd have the best time doing it. So while the youth ministry from the outside, it was we're holding on, we're doing okay. It wasn't this place is blowing up and is awesome and everyone wants to come. It was holding its own. But if I were doing that by myself, I think I would have been so discouraged of like, what's going on? Like, why aren't we growing? And you focus on things differently when you're alone. Like, well, I went to the Christian club, but I had to show up by myself and sit by myself and try to get to know kids by myself. But when you have that safety and numbers of peers, because like the students are your friends, but not your friends.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they're not the ones who are going to carry you through emotionally through this sucks today. Right. And only one girl showed up for our girls event. True story. Painfully awkward. But it's like you have each other and you're just like, we'll get them next time. And you can see things more positively because your heart isn't lonely. But when it's lonely, those blows knock you down. Yeah. And so I don't really know what I would have done if it weren't for you and Bryant and Dana and Zach, how we were just kind of charging this hill together. And some weeks were awesome, some weeks weren't, but we were always having a good time and we were genuinely friends. And I think when you look at the people you're running side by side with, can you say that those people are your friends? Do you enjoy being with them? Or are they just people who show up and you guys kind of do ministry and then they go home, but there's no life happening? Yeah. I really encourage you, try to find that running mate, those people that you would hang out with, even if it weren't for youth group, because that's going to salvage your lonely heart on the days where youth ministry is just like, no, this is not going well.
And to clarify though, I mean, it doesn't mean they have to be your BFFs, but they are the people. It's like always that work person where you're like, if you quit, I'm gone.
Yeah.
And just like that really strong connection where, yeah, I mean, you would hang out with them, but it doesn't necessarily have to be your tell them everything best friend in the whole wide world. Right. But within the context of ministry and life, I guess, yeah, you would say this. But
I think it really does have to be someone you would be willing to hang out with outside of a Tuesday or Wednesday night.
Right.
Like we started, I think after The Office, the Finer Things Club.
Right.
And we would come over to your house here and someone would choose the movie and then you would choose the meal to go with the movie. You'd have to theme it and we'd make dinner together, watch a movie together. And that had nothing to do with youth ministry. We just were like, hey, let's do something fun on Friday night. And I think it's like, it doesn't have to be your best friends in the whole wide world. I'm sure you have your best friend spot filled, but just people who you really would want to hang out with. I think that just makes ministry consistently enjoyable when it is difficult, because at least you can look at the people around you and say, I don't like what we're doing and I don't like how this is going, but I
don't like who we're doing it for,
but I like who I'm doing it with. And there's a lot of things I can do because I'm doing them with the right people.
Right.
But even when I remember certain camps where I didn't have my crew with me, the problems seemed bigger. The problems seemed more insurmountable. The problems seemed more painful and daunting, whereas I felt more confidence that I could face challenges when I had someone who was a friend, who I felt like had my back, who was encouraging me, that I could kind of let loose with a little bit and be honest with, and that I didn't have to say little buttoned up youth pastor around, but I could be like, dang, I'm frustrated.
Yeah.
Be like, I know, dude, that sucked. All right, well, let's go to bed. We'll get it in the morning. Just someone to be like, hey, take a break. I'll go do it for you. Or, you've already talked to too many students today. Let me take this one. This kid's crying. I got you, and having people that see you, and are partnering with you. That is you can't put a price tag on that.
Yeah.
And then, the relationships with other church staff and your church leadership is really important too, because you could be a little bit siloed from the church staff overall. And that increases leadership loneliness as well, to where you and the senior pastor are rowing against each other. Yeah. You are never rowing in the right direction or the same direction, and it's constant tension. I think that's a category of loneliness that makes you feel, again, that feeling of problems are bigger than they are, because your heart is so tangled up with this person, or like the peers that you work with. Maybe you don't get along well with one of the other pastors or one of the other staff members, and it's this constant grind. And that creates work loneliness and leadership loneliness. But being in harmony, as far as it depends on you, as the Bible says, but being in right relationship with people really is such a boost of energy and confidence and longevity fuel to your leadership. I think you gain resilience in the context of relationships. And so I think the question that all of us are going to hopefully process this week is, am I mistaking problems for being unsolvable? Like, I'm ready to throw in the towel. Is it really the problem? Or could you be falling victim to leadership loneliness to where you just feel disconnected from team and leadership and coworkers, and there's no health in those relationships? So it's actually not the problem you can't solve. It's the resilience you don't have because you're disconnected.
Yeah.
Have you siloed yourself? And I think youth pastors can kind of get into that. Like, well, then I'll just do my job if I can't get along with you, and I'll stick my head in the sand and I'll just focus on me. And that seems like a good solution for a little while, but it really creates this disconnect within the staff or within leadership within the church that it will start to bleed out in certain ways. And you don't even realize it. It's just, you feel icky. Problems are big. Everything sucks. You start getting bitter, where like one relationship could be the difference between you leaving and loving your job.
Yeah.
Now, some of that is going to depend on you if there's some brokenness that you need to fix. And some of that, maybe you're like, well, I would love to have a BFF leader.
Right.
Like, where do I find that person? Some of that's going to depend on prayer as well. If you're just like, you're right, I need that like homie like to do ministry with, why not pray and ask God, like, I'm lonely in my leadership role. I just wish I had a running mate. I just wish I had someone who I would look and see their car in the parking lot and get so excited that they were there today. Can you send me that person? Like, where are they? And you'll be so surprised. Like, every time I've prayed for something like that specific for my ministry, God always comes through. Like, we need where am I ever going to find a girls' small group leader for 7th grade? I've asked everyone I know. There's no one left. And then I pray and like, oh, where did you come from? Like, random person introduces us, or they come up to me after church, or I get a email out of the blue. Like, God can come through. You don't have to be like, all right, strategy 101, how to recruit a ministry best friend. It's like, you could pray for that person to come into your ministry, like kind of just pouring that heart out to God of like, I want to keep doing this, but I need some relationship here or else I'm going to burn out. And you know, it's true. You probably will.
Right.
Like, without someone by your side to keep you going and talk you off a ledge once in a while, or just let you vent and be frustrated and then keep going. Because I think sometimes youth pastors feel like they have to keep up this act or this persona, like you're just dying on the inside because the kids were just so bad, you know, on a youth group night. And you're just like, no, just praise God that they were here hearing the word, even though you were like, oh my gosh, I had to like call 3 parents and send 2 home, and these kids were fighting and this and that. But wouldn't it be nice just to be able to look at someone at the end of the night who gets it because they were there and be like, what was that?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, if we had a night like that every week, I don't know if I'd still be here.
Right.
Like, you've got to be able to just say what you think sometimes and not have to be the performative youth pastor. And if you're not close to anyone on your team, you probably will slide into the role of performative youth pastor. You won't be authentic or real or whatever, but who's that safe person? And your spouse is, obviously, but sometimes somebody there who saw it happen. If your spouse doesn't help out, you know, it's just like, can we just talk about what just happened? That was so stressful. Get it out, talk about it, eat some chocolate, high five, call it a night,
Right.
but I don't know what I do without those people. I have so many on my team that have my back and are my biggest cheerleaders, my biggest supporters. And now they know me so well that when something happens, they'll give me a look like, oh no,
Right.
and then we bounce back, like just showing your cracks a little bit of like, oh, I did not like that. Or,
Right.
okay, that was stressful. Or, whoo, that kid, that was a lot. Or that parent totally screamed at me for something. Like, I mean, just having that soft landing of your team to say, that was rough.
Yeah.
We saw that. Okay. Whoa. How about let's try again next week.
Right.
What do you guys think? So hopefully that makes sense, but just be cautious of the leadership loneliness being the real culprit of the reason you want to quit, because that could be the underlying issue of a problem you're thinking is unsolvable, but might not actually be.
Yeah. And a lot of those friendships and the bonds that you have with people that you're working with on your team in youth ministry really become fostered through not just there at youth ministry, but all the things that you do outside of that. Like you just 2 nights ago or whatever it was, you had all your leaders over to hang out, had breakfast for dinner.
It was so good. Still thinking about it.
Because it's interesting from my perspective, I'm not part of your team. And there was at least 6 or 7 people there that I honestly had never even seen before. But even me being, I was just kind of popping in and out. I wasn't even really a part of it. I feel connected even with some of those people.
I was just sneaking you food upstairs.
I know. I was hiding. But I feel like hanging out and talking and laughing, all of a sudden it's like, oh, there's a connection. Like I feel like I kind of know you now. And the more of those that you kind of allow to happen, that bond is going to grow. Whereas like it's like any job where it's like if the only time you see each other is, when you're part-time shift and clock in and clock out. I used to work at a Marriott property where we had to dress up. Like I was in a suit and tie every single day. And sometimes when there'd be an outside of work casual like event, you're like, that's what you dress like normally. Oh, like I'm feeling I'm getting to know the real you all of a sudden. Just something as simple as that.
And you're a horrible dresser.
You're horrible. You can't match for anything. Your style is awful. No, but it's just interesting when you see people outside of the normal environment and you do things fun together and you laugh together and you bond that way. Then all of a sudden you become closer and closer. And then it just makes the time when you are together in the trenches different and more, what's the word I'm looking for? Like there's just that connection. I feel like there's no other better way of saying it. It's just the connection that you have is deeper when you give those opportunities to get to know each other outside of the task you guys are normally doing.
Yeah. And it really does give you the strength to do difficult things.
How often do you do those? Like how many times a year do you do leader
night out?
Leader night where there's no student, it's just the leaders for the sake of having fun, not training.
Oh, I don't train. Yeah, we don't.
For those nights, like how many times a year do you say you do that?
So we do it every 3 months, which ends up obviously
once a
simple
quarter.
math being 4 times a year. And then the big one is the leader retreat. So it's 4 leader night outs and a leader retreat. And that
like
one we
3
do
days?
a weekend.
2 nights, 3 days.
Yeah, it's like Veterans Day weekend, I think, in November. So it's great. We could actually do an extra night because Monday's off. But yeah, we stay in a cabin and literally we don't do any, like Jeff said, no training, no like brainstorming or anything like that. It's like we are here to eat and have fun and play games and sleep and relax and do whatever we want. Because everyone is so busy and all my leaders work. Like, don't mistake like, oh, well, do they not have jobs? They can just la-di-da play all the time. No, everyone works. A lot of them are married with children and careers and all this stuff. But
and that's all the more reason why when you do these things to make them legitimately fun.
That's what I was going to say.
One more thing.
It's like so that's why we come to play. And I believe like fun, I don't know if everyone needs it as much as I do. I think maybe I just project like, well, you must need it as much as I do. Remember I came home the other day, I was telling Jeff, turns out I'm not depressed. I just needed to have some fun because I was like dragging at the end of summer, like, I can't go one more day. And then my friend and I went for e-bike rides and lunch and coffee, went down to the beach. And I'm like, oh, I guess that's all I needed. I
Re-energized.
feel like a totally normal person again. And so I try to make that for my leaders. Like, we are here to have fun. Don't
Yeah.
you dare work. We're doing
Right.
some fun stuff. I don't want to hear about anything unless it's a funny story about a student. We're not going to solve any problems. We're just going to play VR, or we're going to eat,
Right.
or we're going for a hike. I don't know, but it's going to be fun.
Yeah.
So never underestimate the spiritual power of fun, with your leaders. We are so good at planning fun stuff for our students.
Right. And full circle, that's the reason why we do those things for the students, is so they connect
Yes.
and they get to know each other
Yes.
and build those relationships.
It's the same thing. So, yeah, I guess bottom line is those relationships build resilience in you, and plan ways to make sure that is happening.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's do a question of the day. And this is going to be a tough one. I tried to make this very tough
Oh,
personally. This is an elimination. So you can only keep 2 of these,
Okay.
and the rest will be eliminated. And I can read them more than once if you need me to. And save your comments to the end, because some of them I'm giving for the viewer and listeners. They may like these things. I already know some
Okay.
of the opinions you have on some of them.
Keep
All right.
my opinions to myself.
You can only keep 2 of these: mayonnaise, ranch, ketchup, mustard, salsa though. What?
Am I allowed to comment on that, you weirdo? Nobody says salsa except for my mom. She also says spatula.
Salsa, hot sauce, soy sauce, barbecue sauce.
Oh my god.
Or again, really quick. You can only keep 2: mayonnaise, ranch, ketchup, mustard, salsa, hot sauce, soy sauce, barbecue sauce.
I probably am going to say I'm going to keep hot sauce.
It's tough.
I could get by without soy sauce because I'll use ponzu instead. So I will use salsa.
You work with junior hires, don't you? Finding loopholes.
Yeah. Salsa.
I could create my own salsa if I used
Salsa.
salsa.
And hot sauce. Salsa and hot sauce.
Salsa. Wow. Okay. Mine was going to be, because I don't like ponzu, soy sauce and ranch.
I thought really hard about ranch, but I think Caesar will do the trick.
What about you guys? Put in the comment section below. Pick 2
Or blue cheese.
that you can keep. The rest of them will be eliminated. Yeah,
That's hard.
It is hard. I was going to say 3, but
I wonder if it will vary by placement in the country.
Probably.
Because I could see some people
Barbecue sauce
being
being
able to
staple.
live without barbecue sauce.
This is a community comment of the day. This comes from Reginald Miniweather, who says, "Hello, ministry coaches. You 2 are a jewel to the body of Christ.
Aw.
I just found your podcast about a month ago, and you 2 have blessed my heart tremendously. I will be taking over as the youth pastor for my church, and I'm so nervous. Your content has given me so many ideas and resource suggestions I would probably never have found if I didn't watch your podcast. Keep up the awesome job."
Thanks, Reginald.
Thanks, Reginald. That's awesome.
Can we
It's
call you
very
Reggie?
encouraging to hear.
It was great. I loved
Yeah.
that.
Appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening, and we'll see you next time.
The reality is most youth pastors quit within the first 2 years, and this is why.
And this is the reason why.
And this is the reason why. The reality is most youth pastors quit with